Hi, everybody. Joey Reese here with the Practice Center, where we practice all things mindfulness, forgiveness, and attitudinal healing. And today I'm here to talk about self-forgiveness and the role of shame versus guilt. Now, Dr. Luskin talks about self-forgiveness in a way that I really dig, because I think the common language that I hear around self-forgiveness is that it's so hard and how do I do it? And when I hear him talk about self-forgiveness, his first comments is that people do it too much and that they let themselves off the hook too much and that they kind of skip over the actual really work and we're spend much too much time blaming others and much too much time letting ourselves off the hook. So in thinking about that, I'm like, how do I make that more palatable? Or is that true for me? Or how do I talk about it in mindful forgiveness in the work that I do, in the workshops that I do? And I got to tell you, let me start off by saying I 100% agree. I 100% agree. And in this world where we're like spending so much time like talking about self-care and treating yourself, I think that can feel counterintuitive and almost blasphemous. What's the word? Why can't I think of that word? Blasphemy. Oh my God. It can sound like blasphemy. All right. So let me explain. So the concept, if you guys follow Brene Brown's work, I love the breakdown and the research around shame versus guilt. That's the whole point. So here, let me see if I can clarify for myself. And by extension, maybe it'll be clearer for you. Shame. There's a lot of us walking around with an unhealthy amount of shame, or is there even a healthy amount of shame? Shame, the concept that I am worthless, I am bad, the internal attacking of myself that says just my general being is no good. Shame, that's unhelpful, unhealthy. I think there's a group of us that carry that around too much. And then there's almost this weird connection between that and then this toxic positivity, or this like focus on, let's swing all the way over to optimism, but it'll be okay, I can get through. Both of those are on the ends of the spectrum that tend to not be so helpful. If our goal is to really feel good about ourselves, really to have this internal sense of peace, really if we're wanting this joy that'll ooze out into us living life on purpose. So this swinging from one end to the other is not self-forgiveness. The swinging from one end of to the other, from shame to toxic positivity or like straight to optimism, is not helpful for many of us. And we can see that in the way that people behave. I can see that in the way that I behave. So much of my life was about feeling worthless and then outwardly trying to like buck up, but everything will be okay. And yet everything in my life signaled that I wasn't doing well. I wasn't taking care of myself. I was eating away my pain. I was drinking away my pain. I gained excessive amounts of weight where I was causing myself damage. I was, my knees were buckling, my lower back was hurting. Like none of that said self-care, right? So none of that said, everything's going to be okay. None of that proved it. In fact, it was proving the opposite. It was signaling that there was something deeper or darker happening. So if I'm not going to condone shame, and I'm not going to condone toxic positivity or even this excessive use of, let's be optimistic, always look on the bright side of life, la-di-da, then what am I advocating for? So self-forgiveness, true self-forgiveness, has to happen somewhere in the middle. So when we look at the reasons why I would need to forgive myself, like what is that coming from in the first place? What are the stories that say that I need to forgive myself? It's usually around 4 categories. So if you're interested in diving into that, Please attend a workshop, my mindful forgiveness workshop. Please go ahead and look at Dr. Fred Luskin's work, Forgive for Good. So I'm not going to dive into that here. But it tends to do with how we behaved in life that has caused harm either to myself or to others, how I have not lived up to the promises that I have made to myself or others, how I have not really taken care of myself, even if I'm going out and getting manis and pedis every day. That's not what we're, so even if I have the most beautiful nails, I don't. That's not indicative of self-care. It's, have you taken care of your business financially, emotionally, in terms of your religion or spiritual self, in terms of your relationships? So it's usually when we see that there's a disparity in what I wanted to do and what I actually did that we beat ourselves up. And I can hear it in the way that I attack myself. I can hear it in the way that I call myself stupid or dumb, or see, no wonder you deserve XYZ. I can hear it in the self-attacks. Those are the areas where I can say, okay, I have some areas where I need to forgive myself, where I need to let go. So from being able to identify those self-attacks to actually being able to let go, what are the steps there? And we have to go through it. We have to go through that valley. We have to go through that park. We can't scoot around denial, and we can't scoot and fall off that emotional hijacking cliff. So what does it mean to go through it? That might mean when I hear myself attacking, there are some specific categories. One, I have not lived up to whatever I've deemed as my potential. And this is not like La La Land. This is like, did I want to go to school and did I not finish? So there was a long time. It took me 12 years to finish my undergrad. Okay. So there were a lot of reasons why it was okay. It was good. Actually, I think even in retrospect, it was good for me to drop out of the school. It was not the school for me. I should not have picked that. I wish I had better guidance around that. I wish I had paid more attention. I wish I had gone to where I wanted to go. A lot of reasons why dropping out was good. And then I started having kids. And then wanting like a certain kind of life for myself in terms of career that I could not get without finishing school. So there was a lot of years where I found myself beating myself up silently, even if I was like, I'm working and I'm making money, I'm taking care of my kids. In the quiet, I was like, God, you're such a dummy. You're just a dropout. Yeah, all of these self-attacks, right or wrong, yours might sound different, but this is how mine sounded. So it was important for me to get my butt back in school and to finish it. That is what self-care meant for me in that moment. So the difference between like when the moment of window opened up where I could really hear myself beating myself up about not finishing something that I had deemed important, then it highlighted like some healthy guilt for myself. The guilt that said, God, I wasted all that money. Yeah, that sucks. I'm owing these student loans and I have nothing to show for it. I let myself down in that particular regard. So there shined on me something that I wasn't doing that I could do. So guilt is about that action. I did something that I'm not proud of. And when I can see that clearly, then I can do something about that in a way that if I said, I didn't finish school, therefore I'm a bad person, that disconnect, either I have to avoid looking at it altogether to feel better, or I have to be like, no, it's not that important to feel better. And neither of those tend to be helpful long-term. So really looking at what did I do? What did I want to do? And is there something that I can do about that? Yeah, it appeals to my doing nature. But that's really what self-forgiveness work is about, is identifying those areas where I feel guilty for doing or not doing. So if there's something that I can do, then I'm going to do that. But if it's some offense that I have, what do you say, given to, if I have hurt somebody, then the doing might be like really stepping up and apologizing, making amends. And sometimes that's a long road, the making amends. Yeah, it's not an empty apology. So that guilt that shines, that says, boy, I wasn't present in a way that I really wanted to be with my children, then it's not like playing this emotional manipulation game of crying all the time, which I cry quite often in this road to healing my relationship in the way that I want to with my kids. But it's actually then doing the thing that I'm apologizing for. So if I'm apologizing for not showing up, for not being present, then my work is in being present and showing up. So now they're adults, right? So, well, you don't know that. So how can you answer right or wrong? Now they're adults. That means that I'm present in our conversations. I'm looking them as adults and not just my babies or my kids, right? They're grown ass adults who have whole ass beings that are separate in identity from just being my kids. So how do I really get to know them? That is a question of presence. That's a question of presence. So that means I'm going to have to show up different and learn skills that I might not be equipped with. So that means I have to go learn how to do those things so that I can do them with my children. So the idea of self-forgiveness, I love the way that Forgive for Good process talks about that, because it's not this really wishy-washy kind of let yourself off the hook. It's like, do the work and change that story around whatever it is that you need to forgive yourself for. So I would encourage you, if this has brought up anything for you. So one, what are the areas where you're beating yourself up? And then ask yourself, what were your positive intentions? Because a lot of these behaviors that end up badly started off with you wanting some basic stuff, like love or belonging or to be heard or to be seen or to be helpful, that didn't hit well in your life. So the outcome of it didn't really show up in the way that you intended. So to really go back to, what was your positive intention? What was that beginning, like that part of your heart that really wanted something good for yourself? And then jump off from there and create the life that is inherent in that positive intention. So for me, if I want to belong and have a strong family, then it's not good enough for me to lament that the family that didn't have. It's to look at the family I do have and to create that structure or create the relationship or spend the time to really shine on creating the family and the love and the belonging in that family that I want now. So it's very present moment oriented and future focused. It is not lamenting and dragging up the stories from the past. I love the way that Fred Luskin and Forgive for Good process talks about and teaches the self-forgiveness process. And this is what we teach at Mindful Forgiveness and at the Practice Center too. So if you want to dive into what it is to really self-forgive in this bigger context of forgiveness, I invite you to join us for a workshop or to start a dialogue in the comments here, or reach out to one of the facilitators and have the deeper conversation. So remember, self-forgiveness is just not about platitudes or to always think positively or to, this toxic positivity. It's not helpful. It's not helpful to you. It's not helpful to me. It's not helpful to create more peace on this planet. It is focused around real stories, and it's really focused on action and creating that life on purpose. Hope to see you soon.